It all started with a gnome. Not even a creepy one. Just a cheerful little red-hatted fellow sitting by my hydrangeas, minding his ceramic business. A week later, I got my first violation letter from the HOA. It read, "Dear resident, per section 4.3.7b of HOA regulations, lawn ornaments are prohibited as they distract from community harmony. Failure to comply will result in a $150 fine." I laughed. Out loud. My wife thought I was losing it. "It's a gnome," I said. "Not a meth lab." I put the letter on the fridge and ignored it. 2 days later, Karen, our self-appointed HOA queen, showed up at my door, clipboard in hand. "It's not about the gnome," she sniffed. "It's about standards." I told her politely, "Karen, if the gnome offends you, maybe you should stop staring at my lawn." Her eyes narrowed. That was the moment I realized. This wasn't about a gnome. This was war. The next week, I noticed a guy in a navy windbreaker with HOA security, stenciled across the back, pacing in front of my house like he was guarding Fort Knox. He even had a cheap plastic badge clipped to his belt. This dude started patrolling at weird hours, shining a flashlight at my car, writing fake tickets, and even measuring my grass height with a literal ruler. One morning I found another letter taped to my garage door. Violation number 2, grass exceeding 2.5 inches. Immediate correction required. $100 fine. My neighbor Tom nearly choked laughing when he saw it. "Man, they're measuring your lawn with more precision than NASA uses for rockets." I finally asked Badge Boy who he worked for. He puffed his chest and said, "The HOA. I'm authorized to enforce compliance." Yeah, authorized by Karen's ego, not the law. I started snapping photos. Dates, times, faces, everything. If they wanted to play fake cop, I was going to build a case big enough to choke them with their own bylaws. A week later, Karen herself cornered me with another complaint. My mailbox. Apparently it was the wrong shade of black. I didn't know there were shades of black, but Karen whipped out her rulebook like it was the Constitution. Section 7.1. Mailboxes must be painted HOA black number 004, she declared. Mine. Rust-Oleum black satin. To normal humans, the same color. To Karen? Grounds for crucifixion. She slapped a bright orange violation notice on it like it was condemned property. My wife said, "This is getting insane. Why don't you just paint it?" "Because principle. That's why. I'd rather set the mailbox on fire than let Karen win." Instead, I repainted it bright neon pink just to make a point. 2 days later, another fine. But here's the kicker. While I was documenting Mailboxgate, I noticed Karen's own mailbox was dented, unpainted, and leaning like the Tower of Pisa. Rule 7.1 violation, plain as day. I snapped the photo. This was getting good. The fines kept rolling in like clockwork. $50 here, $200 there. For improper holiday decorations, a pumpkin on Halloween. For unsanctioned landscaping, I planted lavender. Even for parking a vehicle of questionable aesthetics, my 10-year-old Honda. At first, I thought the letters were automated, but then I realized Karen wrote them all by hand. She even signed them in curly cursive, like the Queen of Petty. One read, "Your pumpkin disrupts the visual flow of the neighborhood. Remove immediately." Tom laughed so hard he said he was framing it. But these letters gave me an idea. If Karen was this sloppy, maybe she'd slip up somewhere else. I started collecting every single violation notice, stapling them into a thick binder. By the end of the month, the binder was fatter than a phone book. My wife said, "You're starting to look like you're building a criminal case." I looked her dead in the eye and said, "That's because I am." Turns out I wasn't the only one in Karen's crosshairs. Tom got fined for wind chimes causing auditory disruption. Sarah got nailed for having non-HOA approved porch lights. Even Old Man Henderson got a ticket for a rogue bird feeder. At the next block party, the neighborhood gossip wasn't about kids or sports. It was all Karen complaints. People waved their violation letters around like they were playing bingo. Tom said, "She fined me $75 because my dog barked at a squirrel." Sarah added, "She threatened to evict me for having a yellow doormat." That's when I realized Karen wasn't running an HOA. She was running a dictatorship. So we made a pact. Start digging into the bylaws, share everything, and find dirt. If Karen could fine us for nonsense, maybe we could flip the script. And trust me, the dirt was coming. Badge Boy finally crossed the line. One afternoon, I caught him snooping around my backyard gate. When I confronted him, he flashed his plastic badge and said, "Routine inspection." I told him, "You're trespassing. Get off my property." Instead of leaving, he threatened me. "You don't want to make this harder on yourself. I can escalate this." I filmed the whole exchange on my phone. His badge literally said Property Protectors LLC. With a Z. I can't make this up. That night, I filed a complaint with the actual police. The officer who showed up laughed so hard he nearly fell over. "Buddy, this isn't security. This is cosplay." The next morning, I printed flyers with a screenshot of Badge Boy's fake badge and passed them around the neighborhood. The embarrassment? Glorious. Karen was furious. With my binder of evidence, I finally sat down and actually read the HOA bylaws. And wow, it was like finding cheat codes in a video game. For every ridiculous rule about gnomes, there were 10 about board responsibilities, transparency, financial reports, election procedures, conflict of interest. Guess who hadn't followed any of them? Karen. She hadn't held a proper board election in 3 years. She spent HOA funds on administrative expenses, aka her weekly spa visits. And technically, she wasn't even allowed to issue handwritten fines. I started compiling everything. Dates, photos, receipts, violations. It wasn't just petty anymore. It was fraud. And the more I dug, the more I realized, this wasn't just about saving my gnome. It was about taking Karen down. The next HOA meeting was packed. Normally, 5 people showed up. That night, 25. Everyone clutching their violation letters like subpoenas. Karen strutted in, smug as ever, clipboard ready. "Let's begin with community concerns," she said. Tom stood first. "Yeah, my concern is you fine me $50 for having wind." The room erupted in laughter. Karen's face tightened. I stood up next, holding my fat binder. "I have concerns too. About your mailbox, your dog's off-leash, and the fact you haven't held an election since 2021. Her jaw dropped. "That's irrelevant." I slammed the binder shut. "No, Karen. That's the law." And just like that, the room turned. Here's where things turned from petty to horrifying. One evening, my wife and I were out front with our newborn, enjoying the rare peace. Badge Boy rolled up again, muttering about non-compliance. Before I could react, he snatched the baby carrier, with my infant inside, and marched toward the lake across the street. My wife screamed. I sprinted after him, adrenaline surging, as he tossed the carrier into the shallow water like it was trash. Luckily, the baby was strapped in tight and unharmed, but my SEAL instincts kicked in. I pulled my Glock 19 and emptied it into the ground around Badge Boy's feet. He froze, hands up, suddenly realizing playtime was over. That was the last straw. The HOA war had gone nuclear. Police swarmed the neighborhood within minutes. Badge Boy tried claiming official authority, but the cops saw right through him. They cuffed him for trespassing, reckless endangerment, and impersonating an officer. Karen stormed out of her house shrieking, "You can't arrest him. He works for me." The cop turned to her and said, "Ma'am, that makes it worse." The neighborhood watched as her security force was hauled off in a squad car. That night I got texts from half the block. "We've got your back. Time to finish this. Let's bury Karen." And honestly, I was ready. The next HOA board meeting wasn't a meeting. It was a trial. The room was standing room only. Karen tried to start with her usual roll call, but Tom shouted, "Sit down, dictator." I opened my binder and projected photos on the wall. Her broken mailbox, her dog's off-leash, her spa receipts. Then I read aloud. Article 9.2. HOA funds may not be used for personal expenses. Article 12.1. Board elections must be held annually. Article 14.3. Unauthorized security patrols are prohibited. Every face in the room turned on her. Karen sputtered, "This is harassment." I smiled. No, Karen. This is accountability. When the evidence was all laid out, the floor demanded a vote. Remove Karen as president, someone shouted. Hands shot up. Every single one. Even her former allies turned against her. Karen shrieked. This is illegal. You can't do this. But the bylaws, the same ones she used to torture us, sealed her fate. She was officially removed, effective immediately. For the first time in years, the neighborhood actually cheered. People hugged. Tom brought out beers. Sarah blasted music from her porch. And Karen? She stormed off, muttering about lawsuits. The new board wasted no time. Fines were canceled. Ridiculous rules were repealed. Lawn ornaments? Legal. Mailbox shades? Whatever you want. Bird feeders? Go nuts. Karen's financial records were sent to the county auditor. Turns out she'd skimmed thousands. She ended up facing charges. As for Badge Boy, he pled guilty and got community service, ironically mowing lawns. My lawn specifically. The gnome? Still standing proudly. I named him Justice. Life finally went back to normal. No more letters. No more fake cops. No more dictator with a clipboard. Just neighbors being neighbors again. Sometimes I catch myself laughing at how ridiculous it all was. The mailbox drama, the lawn measuring, the pumpkin violation. But then I remember how close it came to real danger with my newborn. People ask me, was it worth it? Every time, I point at that gnome and say, absolutely. Because in the end, the gnome wasn't just a gnome. It was a reminder that sometimes, the pettiest battles matter most. Because if you don't stand up to tyrants, even tiny ceramic ones become their excuse to rule your life. And me? I'll never let a Karen win again. Just when we thought the nightmare was over, Karen staged one last pathetic attempt at power. 2 weeks after her removal, flyers appeared in everyone's mailbox. Not official letters. Cheap printer paper, badly formatted, Comic Sans font. The headline read, Emergency Petition to Reinstate Karen as HOA President. I nearly spit out my coffee. Reinstate her? After everything? The flyer accused the neighborhood of being lawless, without her. She claimed my gnome was breeding disorder, and Tom's wind chimes were lowering property values. She even called Sarah's porch lights a beacon for criminal activity. Nobody bought it. Instead, neighbors gathered on my lawn laughing like we were roasting a bad comedian. Tom stapled the flyer to his garage with a big sign. Comedy Hour, featuring Karen. The final blow? At the very next board meeting, we voted unanimously to fine Karen $500 for unauthorized distribution of HOA material. Oh, the irony. With Karen gone and peace restored, we decided to celebrate in the pettiest way possible, a neighborhood gnome parade. Every family placed a lawn gnome out front. Red hats, blue hats, some fishing, some holding lanterns. Even Old Man Henderson bought 10 and lined them up like a ceramic army. When Karen drove through one last time to glare at us from her SUV, she was greeted by 50 smiling gnomes staring back. Tom yelled, "Welcome back, Supreme Leader." Sarah played circus music on her Bluetooth speaker. Karen peeled out of the neighborhood, tires screeching, and never came back. Now every year, on the anniversary of her downfall, we host Gnome Day. We decorate, barbecue, and laugh about the time one woman thought she could control an entire neighborhood with clipboards and Comic Sans. And my gnome, Justice? He leads the parade front and center. Because in this neighborhood, we don't bow to Karens. We gnome them right out of power. Of course, Karen couldn't just disappear quietly. A month after the gnome parade, we all got served with envelopes taped to our doors. Inside, a lawsuit. Karen had filed a class action suit against the entire neighborhood, claiming we orchestrated a campaign of bullying that damaged her reputation. The best part? She represented herself. No lawyer would touch her. Her complaint included emotional distress caused by wind chimes, gnome-based intimidation, and my personal favorite, defamation by mailbox paint. At the first hearing, the judge skimmed her paperwork and said, "This reads like satire." Karen tried to argue, but the judge cut her off. Case dismissed. When she stormed out of court, Tom whispered, "That's strike 3, Karen. You're out." For the first time, I realized, Karen wasn't scary anymore. She was a punchline. With Karen gone, the new HOA board actually started functioning like adults. Meetings weren't hostile interrogations anymore. They were potlucks. We formed committees for fun things like a community garden and movie nights. Henderson chaired the birdwatching group, a not-so-subtle jab at his old bird feeder violation. The bylaws got rewritten too. Out went the nonsense about mailbox shades and grass measurements. In came rules about actual safety, speed limits, proper lighting, emergency preparedness. I even volunteered for the finance committee. Turns out, with Karen gone, the HOA actually had money. Enough to fix the playground, repave the sidewalks, and fund an annual block party. For the first time, the HOA wasn't a weapon. It was useful. And we all agreed. No one person would ever run it unchecked again. It's been a year now, and life in the neighborhood feels almost surreal compared to the Karen era. No more fake cops. No more absurd fines. Just families enjoying their homes. But the legend of Karen lives on, in the form of the gnome. Every new family who moves in gets gifted one at their housewarming. Tom calls it the neighborhood shield. Sarah jokes, if the gnome stands, tyranny falls. Even the kids are in on it. Last Halloween, a bunch of them dressed up as tiny gnomes and marched down the street chanting, "No more Karens." Sometimes I walk past Justice, my original gnome, and I swear he's smirking. He's more than just a decoration now. He's a symbol. Because when one person tried to control us, a ceramic garden gnome sparked a revolution. And honestly, that's the kind of story you tell forever. It's strange how something as small as a gnome spiraled into a war that nearly broke our neighborhood. When I think back, the fake fines, the mailbox debacle, the ridiculous HOA black number 004 rule, the fake cop, and yes, the horrifying moment my newborn was thrown toward the lake, it feels unreal. And yet, we survived it. More than that, we grew stronger. Karen thought she was the neighborhood's savior, but she was its greatest curse. When she fell, something unexpected happened. People connected. Neighbors who once nodded politely in passing started showing up for each other. Tom became the block's unofficial grill master. Sarah transformed her porch into a gathering spot, string lights glowing like a welcome sign. Even Henderson, the grumpy old bird feeder guy, turned into everyone's favorite storyteller. The new HOA board works like it should have all along. Fair, transparent, and human. No more absurd fines, no more clipboards of doom. Just real discussions about safety, maintenance, and fun. Every time I see Justice, my gnome, standing tall among the hydrangeas, I'm reminded of what we fought for. Freedom from pettiness. Freedom from tyranny. The right to decorate our lawns however the hell we want. We didn't just win against Karen. We built something better in her place. The first anniversary of Karen's downfall wasn't quiet. It was legendary. We called it the Festival of Freedom, and the entire block turned out. Kids painted gnome faces on their cheeks. Neighbors lined the street with banners that read, "No more Karens." Tom roasted enough burgers to feed an army. Sarah set up a photo booth with props, clipboards, fake violation notices, and plastic badges labeled Property Protectors LLC. But the highlight? The gnome parade. Every single household contributed. Some gnomes rode wagons. Others stood tall in decorated wheelbarrows. Henderson crafted a massive wooden gnome float, complete with a megaphone shouting, "Justice for all." Even people from outside our neighborhood came to watch. Cars slowed just to take photos. Local news even did a small segment, calling it the most unusual HOA celebration in the county. When the sun went down, we lit lanterns and set them floating on the lake. The same lake where my newborn had once been in danger. This time, instead of fear, it symbolized triumph. As the lanterns drifted, my wife squeezed my hand and whispered, "We made it. Together." And I knew she was right. Now, months later, the story of our battle with Karen has taken on a life of its own. Friends from other towns tell me they share our saga at parties. Neighbors joke that Justice the Gnome should have his own statue. Someone even started selling t-shirts with his red-hatted face and the slogan, "In Gnome we trust." And you know what? I wear mine proudly. Karen never came back. Rumor has it she tried running another HOA across town, but got shut down in record time when residents Googled her name. Seems our story followed her like a bad Yelp review. The best part? My kids will grow up in a neighborhood where they know their community stood up, fought back, and laughed through the madness. They'll know that even in the pettiest wars, unity matters. Every morning, I sip my coffee, glance at Justice, and smile. He's more than a gnome now. He's a symbol. A reminder that even when you're up against tyrants, you can win, with persistence, receipts, and a whole lot of neighborly solidarity. Because at the end of the day, the real legacy isn't about gnomes or fines. It's about people refusing to be controlled. And me? I'll always remember the battle cry that changed everything. Don't mess with the gnome.